There's something happening inside UK McDonald's kitchens that most customers would never expect. And the unsettling part is this: it affects the meals you grab on rushed mornings, the treats your children celebrate with, and the late-night snacks millions of people believe are completely harmless. Behind the scenes are practices that have gone unnoticed, not because they're deliberately hidden, but because they're simply never explained. What most people think they're ordering isn't always what they're truly getting. I've spent weeks combing through reports, public statements, sourcing information, and documenting industry procedures. And when all the pieces finally came together, the full picture was far more shocking and far more important than I expected. In this investigation, we'll break down the hidden systems behind UK McDonald's, the ingredients most customers never question, the supply chain processes that deserve more attention, and the healthier choices that aren't always as clean as they seem. Keep watching, because some of the most eye-opening details appear in the items people believe are the safest options on the menu. The ingredients you were never meant to question. For most people, a McDonald's meal feels familiar, predictable, and uncomplicated. You order a burger, nuggets, fries, or maybe a wrap, and you assume you already know what you're getting. After all, the menu shows simple pictures. The ads talk about fresh ingredients, and the branding convinces millions of customers, especially families, that the food is straightforward and safe. It's easy to believe there isn't much more to it than that. But the truth is that even the most ordinary menu items, from buns to sauces to coatings, rely on lengthy ingredient lists that many UK consumers never take the time to read. Some of these components sound scientific or unfamiliar, not because they're inherently dangerous, but because they're part of industrial-scale food production. Stabilizers, emulsifiers, acidity regulators, anti-caking agents, preservatives, and modified starches. They're designed to make food last longer, hold its shape, retain moisture, or survive long transportation routes, not to make the meal healthier. And this is where nutrition experts begin to raise concerns. While these ingredients are permitted in the UK, their presence in multiple components of a single meal, the bun, the sauces, the pickles, the cheese, even the seasoning blends, can stack up in ways most customers never consider. Families walk in assuming they're choosing a quick bite, not realizing how many additives might be combined in one tray. The simple burger rarely looks simple when broken down on paper. Then there's the question of processing. Many items that appear fresh or wholesome are pre-prepared, pre-seasoned, or partially cooked long before they ever reach the restaurant. Again, this isn't hidden wrongdoing, it's standard fast food logistics, but it means what arrives on your tray has gone through a longer journey and more handling steps than most people imagine. Each of those steps can influence flavor, texture, and nutritional quality. When you add it all up, the additives, the processing, the extended supply chain, you start to see why experts urge consumers to pay closer attention. Not because the ingredients are forbidden or unsafe, but because understanding what's really in your food helps you make choices with clearer eyes. And if you think this is surprising, wait until you learn what happens before those ingredients even reach the kitchen, because it takes us into the supply chain, where even more unexpected details come to light. The supply chain secrets behind every bite. When you walk into a McDonald's in the UK, everything feels instant. Orders appear in minutes, ingredients seem endlessly stocked, and the system looks so seamless that most people never stop to think about how all that food actually gets there. The natural assumption is simple. Fast food equals fast preparation. But behind every burger, fry, and nugget lies a massive supply network built to move enormous quantities of ingredients across the country every single day. And the deeper you look into how this system works, how ingredients are sourced, stored, transported, and prepared, the more questions begin to rise about freshness, timing, and what "made for you" really means. The reality is that many ingredients don't arrive at the restaurant in the form customers imagine. McDonald's uses a highly centralized production model, which means items are often prepared or partially prepared far away from the actual restaurant. From patties to lettuce mixes to pre-cut produce, much of the food has already undergone multiple steps long before it reaches the kitchen. This helps maintain consistency, but it also means the food has a history most customers never see. Transport plays a major role too. Temperature-controlled trucks, strict timelines, and specialized packaging all keep the chain running. But they also introduce layers of handling that distance the meal from the idea of fresh off the farm. Even basic items may have spent days moving through warehouses and distribution centers. Again, none of this is secret wrongdoing. It's simply how high-volume food logistics function. Still, the more steps there are, the more opportunities arise for quality to shift or nutrients to diminish. And then there's the question many consumers never think to ask. How long has that ingredient been in its packaged state before it reached the restaurant? Some items are frozen for extended periods, not necessarily unsafe, but far from the fresh image customers picture in their minds. Others rely on protective gases or sealed environments to stay usable until needed. These methods are industry standard, yet they highlight how different fast food operations are from home cooking or local cafes. All of this leads to one surprising realization. When a meal arrives in seconds, it's because countless processes have already taken place out of sight. Convenience, in many cases, is built on a long and complex chain of preparation stretching far beyond the restaurant walls. But if you think supply chain handling is eye-opening, wait until you understand what happens inside the restaurant. Specifically, with one kitchen practice nearly every customer assumes is simple and harmless. The next exposes the quiet truth about the oil that gives McDonald's food its signature taste. The oil problem no one talks about. When most people think about fast food, they picture sizzling fryers and golden, crispy food pulled fresh from bubbling oil. It feels simple. Heat, cook, serve. That's it. And because the process happens right in front of customers, many assume it's one of the most transparent parts of the entire McDonald's kitchen. But oil management inside any high-volume fast food chain is far more complicated than customers realize. Those fryers handle enormous amounts of food every day. Fries, nuggets, hash browns, sides, sometimes back-to-back during rush hours. And when a kitchen is producing that much, oil doesn't just sit there untouched. It breaks down, it changes, and it needs constant monitoring to maintain quality. Here's where the tension begins. Oil is not simply replaced every time it gets slightly cloudy or discolored. It is filtered, cycled, skimmed, and carefully maintained to stretch its usable lifespan. This isn't unique to McDonald's. It's standard practice across the fast food industry. But while these methods keep operations efficient, they also mean the oil you see boiling away has undergone far more use than most customers assume. Each time food hits the fryer, small particles break off, seasoning mixes disperse, and natural starches blend into the oil. Over time, this can influence flavor, appearance, and even the texture of new batches. Many customers imagine fresh oil being poured in daily, but the real system relies on rotation, filtration, and topping up. Because full replacement is labor-intensive, costly, and unnecessary as long as the oil stays within the chain's quality standards. Experts note that heated oil naturally changes as it's used, forming compounds that appear only after repeated exposure to high temperatures. These compounds aren't inherently dangerous when kept within controlled limits, but they contribute to why fast-fried foods taste and feel different compared to items cooked with fresh oil at home. So while the food is prepared according to strict procedures, the actual life cycle of that fryer oil is far more complex and far longer than most customers picture. The speed of service you enjoy depends heavily on an oil system built for constant demand, not for constant replacement. But if this surprised you, what comes next is even more unexpected. Because some of the menu items marketed as the lighter, cleaner, or healthier alternatives have their own hidden twists, and we move on to reveals why they may not be the safe choices people think. The healthier options that aren't what they seem. For years, McDonald's has successfully promoted a range of items that appear lighter, cleaner, or more balanced than the classic burgers and fries. Salads, wraps, grilled options, fruit bags, select chicken items. These menu choices are designed to appeal to parents, health-conscious customers, and anyone trying to cut calories without giving up convenience. On the surface, they look reassuring. Fresh lettuce, leaner proteins, fewer obvious indulgences, but appearances can be deceiving. Many customers don't realize how much behind-the-scenes preparation goes into these healthier items. A salad may look crisp and simple, yet the dressing alone can contain more calories, sugar, or sodium than a small order of fries. A grilled chicken wrap may seem like a clean alternative until you read the nutritional information and notice the sodium content, the sauce additives, or the preservatives used to keep ingredients stable during transport. Even the grilled chicken itself is often pre-marinated or pre-seasoned, meaning additional ingredients were added long before it reached the restaurant. And then there's portion sizing. A wrap described as light may actually contain more calories than a burger, depending on the combination of sauces, coatings, and flatbread. Families frequently choose these items, believing they're making the safer decision, without realizing they may be trading one assumption for another. This doesn't mean the food is unsafe. It simply highlights how marketing, visuals, and menu placement can gently nudge customers toward choices that feel healthier without fully explaining what makes them so. When you combine sodium levels, dressings, marinades, and preparation techniques, the gap between healthy and healthy looking becomes much wider than most people expect. And this is exactly why so many nutrition experts encourage consumers to read labels closely and understand the bigger picture, because a meal that seems responsible might not always align with your goals. Before we move on, if you're finding this investigation eye-opening so far, make sure you like this video and subscribe so you don't miss the rest of this series. It takes just a moment and it helps more people discover the information they deserve to hear. Now, if discovering the truth about the healthier options surprised you, just wait, because the next exposes something hidden in almost every corner of the menu. The sugar you never realized you were eating. The hidden sugar game. Most people expect sugar to show up in desserts, milkshakes, and soft drinks. That part isn't surprising. What is surprising is how many savory items at McDonald's contain sugar in places customers never think to look. Sauces, buns, coatings, and even certain proteins. And for families, especially parents trying to manage their children's sugar intake, these small hidden amounts can add up fast. A typical UK customer walking in for a quick meal doesn't imagine they're consuming added sugars in foods that don't taste sweet, but many fast food recipes rely on sugar for reasons beyond flavor. It enhances browning, improves texture, balances acidity, and stabilizes sauces. In fact, some menu items contain more sugar in their condiments than in the main item itself. A drizzle of sauce here, a spread on a bun there. It all blends together so seamlessly that most people never realize how much they're getting. And it's not just sauces. Even burger buns often contain sugar to achieve that soft, uniform texture customers expect. Chicken coatings may include sugar-based ingredients to help crispness and color. Certain marinades rely on it for consistency. None of these are secret ingredients. They're printed on nutritional information sheets, but few customers stop to read them. The result is that many people unknowingly consume far more sugar in a single meal than they intended. Nutrition experts frequently warn that hidden sugar contributes to fatigue, cravings, and energy crashes, especially in children and teens. When a meal marketed as balanced or lighter contains unexpected sugars, parents may find it harder to manage appetite and behavior than they realize. Even adults trying to cut back for health reasons often overlook these concealed sources, believing they're making moderate choices when they're not. This doesn't mean McDonald's is doing something forbidden. It simply shows how industrial food design prioritizes taste and texture, often using sugar in the process, and how consumer assumptions don't always match reality. When you sit down with what looks like a savory meal, you might be eating sugar without ever noticing it. And believe it or not, we haven't even reached the most surprising part of this investigation. Because while the ingredients and hidden sugars are eye-opening, the experiences shared publicly by employees reveal a perspective most customers never hear. What employees know that customers don't. Most customers only see the front counter of McDonald's, the polished screens, the bright menus, the fast-moving staff, and the neatly assembled trays. Everything looks controlled, organized, and predictable. It's easy to imagine that what happens behind the counter mirrors the calm efficiency you see at the front. But anyone who's ever worked in fast food will tell you, the pace behind the scenes is far more intense than most customers realize. Former employees across public forums, interviews, and online discussions often describe a work environment that moves at incredible speed, especially during rush hours. Every second counts, every step is timed, and shortcuts can sometimes happen. Not because staff are careless, but because the pressure to keep up is constant. Public employee. Testimonials often mention how timing systems guide nearly every part of food prep. Burgers, fries, chicken, and even buns are tracked down to the second. When the store is busy, workers may juggle multiple tasks at once, assembling orders, managing equipment, monitoring timers, and greeting customers. In that environment, the ideal version of prep doesn't always match the real conditions of a hectic shift. Some publicly shared experiences mention items sitting slightly longer than intended, ingredients being used quickly to meet demand, or equipment being pushed to its limits during peak periods. These aren't shocking revelations, they're the realities of any high-volume restaurant. Still, they highlight something most customers never think about. The quality of your meal can depend heavily on the rhythm of the shift, the workload of the staff, and how overwhelmed the kitchen is at any given moment. And while McDonald's has procedures designed to maintain consistency, the human element, fatigue, pressure, rush hour chaos, plays a larger role than most people imagine. It's not about wrongdoing, it's about the hidden variables that shape the food experience you receive. When you combine timing systems, speed requirements, and the fast food pace, it becomes clear that what customers see at the front counter is only half the story. The other half is the real-time decision-making happening behind the scenes, the kind that determines whether your meal is perfectly timed or slightly rushed. And if you think that adds a new layer to the picture, just wait until you see the long-term effects researchers warn about when meals like these become regular weekly habits. The real cost: your body, your energy, your long-term health. A single fast food meal doesn't feel like a big deal. Most people treat it as an occasional convenience, something quick, familiar, and satisfying. A busy parent grabs it between errands. A teenager picks it up after school. A worker stops in on a lunch break. It becomes part of the weekly routine without anyone giving it much thought. But here's where experts begin to raise an important point. The nutritional profile of fast food isn't designed for long-term balance. Higher sodium levels, added sugars, calorie-dense combinations, and certain fats all contribute to meals that can leave you feeling full in the moment, but drained later. And when these meals become weekly or even twice-weekly habits, consumers may start noticing changes they didn't connect to their diet at all. Many people report feeling tired shortly after eating fast food, especially meals high in salt and sugar. Others feel mentally foggier or hungrier than expected just hours after finishing what should have been a filling meal. Nutritionists often explain this as the body responding quickly to fast-digesting carbs, additives, and processed ingredients, all of which can spike energy levels and then bring them crashing down. For families, this can mean children feeling restless, irritable, or sluggish after a meal that was meant to be a treat. There's also the issue of nutritional displacement. When fast food takes the place of more balanced meals, people may unintentionally miss out on fiber, whole grains, fresh produce, and steady energy sources. Over time, patterns like these can influence weight, mood, digestion, and general energy levels. Seniors might feel the fatigue more intensely. Young adults may struggle with cravings. Parents may notice appetite swings in their children without realizing where they come from. None of this means a single trip to McDonald's is harmful. What matters is repetition, the slow accumulation of choices that add up week after week. When convenience becomes a default, the nutritional trade-offs become harder to ignore. And this brings us to the most important chapter of all, the part that empowers you to take control. Because once you understand the ingredients, the supply chain, the oil cycle, the hidden sugars, the employee experiences, and the long-term effects, what you can do instead. After uncovering the ingredients, the supply chain, the oil systems, the hidden sugars, the behind-the-counter realities, and the long-term nutritional impact, one question becomes unavoidable. So what can you actually do? Most people don't want to give up convenience. Parents don't want to cook every meal from scratch. Young adults don't always have time for meal prep. Workers don't always have access to healthier options during quick breaks. And that's the key. The goal isn't to eliminate fast food, but to understand how to navigate it with more clarity and control. The first step is awareness. Once you know how certain items are prepared, how much sugar they contain, or how heavy their sodium levels can be, you naturally begin to make different choices. Maybe you skip a sauce that adds unnecessary sugar. Maybe you choose smaller portions instead of stacking multiple items. Maybe you order something that aligns better with your energy needs, instead of defaulting to the same choices each visit. Another strategy is frequency. Fast food becomes far more impactful when it becomes a weekly habit rather than an occasional one. By spacing out visits or saving them for specific moments rather than spontaneous decisions, you give your body more balance and reduce the cumulative effects that experts warn about. You can also prioritize clarity. Reading nutritional information isn't exciting, but it reveals far more than the menu lets on. A quick glance at calories, sugar levels, and sodium content can reshape your choices within seconds, and you might be surprised by which items look healthier and which don't. And for families, especially parents, setting gentle rules can make a huge difference. That might mean choosing water instead of sugary drinks. It might mean sharing items instead of ordering separately. Or it might simply mean talking openly with children about making mindful choices so they understand the long-term benefits without feeling restricted or judged. None of this requires giving up convenience. It just means using it more intentionally. Because once you know what's behind the menu, once you understand the processes, the ingredients, the patterns, and the nutritional impact, you realize something powerful. The choice has always been yours. Your routine can stay the same, or it can shift. Your habits can hold steady, or they can evolve. You're not being told what to eat or what to avoid. You're being shown what goes into your food so you can decide what's right for you and the people you care about. And now, with that understanding in place, we can bring everything together. The final section will summarize the dangers, offer clearer guidance, and help viewers make informed choices moving forward. Now that you've seen behind the scenes, the ingredients, the supply chain, the oil systems, the hidden sugars, the employee experiences, and the long-term nutritional impact, a clearer picture finally emerges. McDonald's in the UK isn't just a quick meal, it's a system, a routine, a habit millions of people rely on without ever understanding what really shapes the food they're eating. Nothing in this video says you must give it up forever. That's not the message. The real takeaway is awareness. Once you understand how an ordinary order is built, what goes into it, and how it affects your body over time, you're no longer eating blindly. You're choosing with intention. If you still want fast food, you can make smarter swaps, smaller portion sizes, fewer sugary drinks, lighter sauces, and less frequent visits. You can balance high-sodium meals with more water, fruits, and fiber throughout the day. And you can look toward fresher alternatives when time allows. Local cafes, prepared meals, supermarket fresh options, or even simple homemade snacks that give your body steadier energy. For parents, this awareness is even more powerful. Helping children understand food choices early on sets them up for better habits later. You don't have to restrict everything. You just guide, explain, and choose moments that make sense. And remember, this expose wasn't meant to shame anyone. It was meant to reveal what most people never get to see. When you pull back the curtain on the systems behind your favorite foods, you gain something far more valuable than fear. You gain control. If this video opened your eyes, leave a comment below and share your thoughts. Have you experienced any of these surprises yourself? Hit like, because it helps this investigation reach more people who deserve to know the truth. Share it with a friend or family member, especially someone who relies on fast food more than they realize. And if you want more deep dive investigations like this, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Your awareness is the first step. Your choices are the next. And now you have everything you need to